Welcome back to another amazing episode of Krusty Car News, the first one for 2025, and we finally address the vehicle affordability crisis, where the first storyline of 5 is all about Toyota's new approach of the $19,000 vehicle that they might be bringing to market. You're going to want to hear about that one. I looked up some of the cheapest trucks on the market today. Would you believe it? They're finally becoming affordable. The third story is how buyers are finally starting to deal with these extraordinarily high vehicle prices. The fourth story, have you heard? Honda is actually dishing Nissan out from going out of business. And the fifth story, Ram and Stellantis are doing the absolute unthinkable. Grab your favorite cup of coffee and enjoy the ride. Let's get into it now.
Life's too short to drive boring cars.
The first story, would you believe Toyota is coming out with a cheaper, low-cost vehicle that's great for off-roading? That's what we've all been looking for: affordability, reliability, and durability all wrapped up in one. Yeah, they had an SUV a few short years ago that was built on a platform that was capable, rugged, durable, and most of all, reliable. You know, it had a platform that a lot of the enthusiasts loved, the off-roading enthusiasts loved it, but the popularity wasn't quite there and it didn't catch on. And while many people said, you know what, bring it back, you know, the hardcore enthusiasts want it. But yet, on the other hand, they didn't sell that many, because when they were selling the FJ Cruiser by Toyota, they sold as many as about 11,700 in total, and then they pretty much ceased production due to poor sales. You've got a body on a steel platform, obviously a ladder frame design. Of course, it has that 4-liter V6 and no turbos. You know, like the Land Cruiser we have right now by Toyota, they've got a scaled down Soften Land Cruiser that comes with a 2.4-liter turbo 4, and it's made it up to a hybrid, and it really does not have the true capability of what some of the other older off-road Toyotas had. And you know, the older Land Cruisers had a very rugged appeal, and the new Land Cruisers not as much. But then the FJ Cruiser came out, and it was a very popular rugged off-road vehicle, almost too rugged for many people, because along with that ultra reliable 4-liter V6, yeah, that's actually one of their best vehicles. We found that actually in the current outgoing Toyota 4Runner. You know, the 4Runner that is getting replaced now. Why is it getting replaced? Not sure, but it's due for a major overhaul, because the new 4Runner now promises to come out with a new 2.4-liter turbo 4, and it looks to be mated up with a hybrid, and it has all of that great amenities and new technology, which the outgoing 4Runner just didn't have. It was a little long in the tooth. It didn't have all the technology that a lot of people are looking for today. A lot of people want that 13-inch screen. A lot of people want all that lane keep assist and all of that other technology, pedestrian warning and everything else that modern vehicles have. But the outgoing 4Runner, it was too much of a dated platform. They're talking about this FJ Cruiser coming out also with potentially a 4-liter V6, 6-speed automatic transmission, or a 6-speed manual gearbox. Great combinations for somebody that really wants to go off-roading. But the mere ingredient sounds an awful lot like the outgoing 4Runner. In my own personal opinion, when I look at the statistics of this latest FJ, I can't help but think, since Toyota is doing a full new overhaul on the new 4Runner, and the new platform, new design, new chassis, new engine and drivetrain setup, it almost makes me wonder if they aren't repurposing the outgoing 4Runner and basically grafting on some new body panels, a new design, a new exterior, and selling it at a slightly lower cost, but has a lot of the same drivetrain elements that a lot of people love. You know, the 4Runner was a very off-road capable vehicle. It also had the ladder frame, and it built on a very sturdy suspension. It was basically a pickup truck, and it didn't have the the unibody that you find in a lot of these modern day SUVs, like the Highlander is more of a minivan, if you will. A lot of their other vehicles, Avenzas, and those are all great vehicles, but they're built on more of a unibody, sort of more of a street glider, if you will. You look at the Jeep Wranglers, the Toyota, the older Land Cruisers, the 4Runners, and a lot of those vehicles, including even maybe now the full-size Bronco, not the small one, but the full-size, they all come on a platform that has a couple of key ingredients that make them great for off-roading. They have the full ladder frame, they have an articulating suspension, usually have some sort of coilover setup, and they allow for a lot of wheel travel. They're usually a fairly soft ride because they're allowing for a lot of bumps. It's able to absorb a lot of the off-road conditions, rocks, stumps, and the like. This latest FJ looks to be a vehicle that they're promising to bring out in 2025. At least that's the plans right now, and rumors has that Toyota plans to bring that vehicle out. Now we know with this transition into the EV market, there's also the conversation about an electric vehicle version of the FJ EV. But Toyota may in fact be bringing back the FJ Cruiser for 2025. What do you all think about that? I'm super excited, super stoked to hear that we're looking back to a vehicle that brings back some of the old nature, you know, a rugged truck platform, a manual gearbox, a naturally aspirated V6 engine. I love all of the ingredients, and throw reliability in there. What's not to love about it? So after hearing about this great new model that Toyota's planning to coming out with the FJ and a repurpose and a rehash of that, is it something that would interest you? Possibly the EV version? I'd love to hear your thoughts down below. I found some of the best, most cost-effective full-size pickup trucks brand new on the market today. And so after doing a little search on Car Gurus, Toyota, GM, Ford, Ram, you name it, there's cheap trucks on every single part of the sector. Let's go shopping for trucks, shall we? Let's start with Ford. Ford F-150, and you know, I kind of leave everything else filtered out pretty much, and I filtered it from highest to lowest price. So these are some of the most expensive vehicles listed on the Car Gurus site. As you can see right here, we have a whole host of Raptors. Raptors at $130,000, $114,000, $112,000 is not a big surprise, but we see them coming down because they were actually significantly more than that. We look at some of these, and we could probably even, when we drill in, and look at one here for $112,000, F-150 Raptor. Why don't we click into that and see some of the details of what a $112,000 Raptor four-wheel drive gives you. We can say, look, this comes with the 3.5 liter V6, 450 horsepower, and automatic transmission. This is a 2024, granted. There may be some flexibility on the price, and I love how they sort of summarize that up for us. You'll notice right here in the listing duration, this one here has been 182 days on Car Gurus and 171 days at the dealership. So this one sounds like it might have been flip-flopped a little bit somewhere along the way, but either way, we're talking 6 months at least. So this vehicle might have came in early 2024. And, you know, it's been sitting there and nobody's buying these vehicles. And even with this price, we see this is cheaper than most of the other ones. So it's clearly not a good seller. We have a 24 F-150 STX Super Crew four-wheel drive. So it gives you everything you need. You get the Super Crew. It's a half-ton truck. It gets you, again, four-wheel drive, the crew cab. And I believe this one has the 2.7. Let's take a look at it. And this one has the 2.7, so it's got kind of the base engine there, but it's really all the doctor ordered in terms of, you know, if you need something to get around with, actually, it's not the worst consideration. This one here says it's been at the dealership and on Car Gurus for 203 days. So now you're probably 360, you're probably about 8 months, 9 months, probably thereabouts. So not selling. But what's wrong with that? And, you know, for $49,000, and see, this is where I've been kind of trying to coach a lot of people and saying, look, you got to go in and get the 24s. The 25s, there's been some cost-cutting initiatives from what I understand, is in my own personal opinion. I've heard Ford's had some initiatives to reduce the number of individual parts by 2,400 going into 25. So this might be probably a better model than we saw or we're going to see in 25. And realistically, even though it's got the base engine, you know what? It's four-wheel drive, Super Crew. 49,000. This is Canadian money. Okay, I'm gonna put this out there. This is Canadian dollars, so $49,000. And because it's the end of 2024, I almost guarantee you could go in there. And I haven't tried this, but we can sit down with these guys, and I guarantee you could probably get that truck for at least $45,000, $46,000. Maybe with taxes, you're 47, 48. With taxes. Maybe you throw in some mud guards and a little PPF in there. Honestly, you can get this truck well equipped, all taxes all in, for well under 50 grand in my own personal opinion. And that's actually not bad. When I actually saw a Lariat version of the Maverick the other day for over 50 grand. Why would you want that if you can get a full-size truck like this? And see what Ram has to offer. So we're going from the lowest to the highest. So Ram, we know they're one of the worst culprits for high prices. We know that. We've seen it. We've heard it. I show you a demonstrator that their top trim level there. That's coming out at a base model, base dollars of about 89,000 US. I mean, you're going to be over 100 grand fully equipped. And certainly in Canada, you're going to be well into that 110, 120 in Canadian dollars. It's not a cheap truck. But if you look at this, Tradesman Quad Cab, right there, $43,000. So who says you can't get a cheap truck? These are 24s, Tradesman. I mean, they're, it's a base truck. It's going to be like rubber floors and absolute base. But you know what? Some of these, I wonder, what does this come with? This nice gray color here. What do we got here? We got a 24 Classic Tradesman Crew 4-wheel drive. I bet you it's got the V6. Hey! Even gets you the Hemi. Look at that. You get the 5.7 Hemi in this with 395 horse. And it's a 24, brand new, plastic on the seats. And how long is it? 80 days on the dealership lot. So, you know what? I'm not even going to say it. I'm just going to say it. Not a bad way to go. 40... You know what? We talk about expensive trucks, and I agree. There's a lot of overpriced trucks, but as we look at this and you're at 45,000 Canadian, again, I guarantee you go in there, you probably get a couple $1,000s off. You're low 40s, and then what? With taxes, you're up to $45,000, $46,000 all in. What do you want to go? Sierra 1500. Let's go half ton and do some comparison. 1500 Sierra. So we're seeing those as well from the lowest trim levels at about 50 grand. So a wee bit more. But look at this old jalopy. Pro regular cab. 1500. Look at that. $54,000 for that. That's a $25,000 truck in my opinion. But look at this one. Steel rims. Seems like when you're talking the entry level of the market, that feels like Ram's got the best. They seem like the broadest spectrum. They've got the cheapest base trucks, but they've got the most expensive top trim trucks. Whereas GM is kind of, they don't go as expensive on the top end, but they're also a little bit more on the bottom end. And so, yeah, they're all kind of over the map, right? So here we have a GMC Sierra 1500 Pro double cab 4x, it looks like. Steel rims, you can see that pretty base looking, 50 grand for that. To get into something a little cuter, he's got some actual alloy wheels, 54 grand for a 1500 Pro Crew 4-wheel drive at 24, it's brand new. That's going to get you, 54,000. Out the door, it's close to 60. Lowest price first, okay, is where we'll start here. Tundra, a brand new 25 SR5. We know the SR5 is kind of like a lower to mid trim level. Usually gives you a 4-wheel drive, gives you a few of the options actually that you like. But it definitely does without a lot of the features. It's kind of mid-level. 4-wheel drive, double cab, SR5. And we're talking about a $58,000 price tag. You're at 60 grand. 62 with taxes out the door. That's not super cheap. I mean, that's you're in the territory of, you're getting up there in trim levels when comparing to the domestics. So it's not a super cheap truck, and now of course the quality issues and the engines they've had with the 3.4s, I think they're gonna have to incentivize that a little bit more in my own opinion. But let's the hell with that. We see them starting around 60 grand for a Tundra. It's just food for thought. There's some amazing buys out here. And I'm not even gonna fib. It seems like there's some great opportunities to get some good deals around here. And as 24 wraps up the year, this might be your opportunity. Interest rates aren't amazing. I certainly wouldn't look at a $150,000 truck. I mean, who wants to be tagged with a $3,500 a month payment? But there are people out there. I mean, go figure. But either way, there's some good options out here. Are any of those trucks an interest to you? I'd love to hear that story too. The third story and how buyers are finally starting to cope with some of these high vehicle prices. Some things that I've been taking on is fixing my old truck. Other people are looking for good deals on the new and used car market. You're definitely going to want to hear about this story. If you've been shopping for a car, new or used, and you're finding some of the prices absolutely obscene. I mean, we're looking at some of the prices I shared with them previously. Some of the full-size trucks. It's, you were infringing on $80,000, $90,000 US. Canadian side of the market, I've seen half-ton pickup trucks for as much as $110,000. And that's not even those specialty high-lift vehicles, like the Raptors. These are garden variety, highly loaded and highly spec'd regular half-ton trucks. But we're also seeing some of the regular vehicle makers, the Toyotas and the Hondas are, they've got cost creep going on too. And, some customers, when they start saving and start shopping, and maybe if they've spread that shopping experience out over the course of 2, 3, or 4 years, it's probably quite eye-opening because a lot of people have seen, when they had this in their mind about the cost of some of these vehicles. For example, Toyota has been creeping their prices up. Look at the Camrys, up a few $1,000s. And, unless you're looking at the base, the brand new 4Runner, the base model is actually almost the same dollars. But nobody buys the two-wheel drive base. That's the problem. That's the catch. And a lot of these vendors are starting to realize this. They're making things a little cheaper, putting lower cost parts in there. We heard Ford now is going more modular, and some of their F-150s, they're actually reducing the number of parts in their truck by 2,400 parts in the 2025 model year when you compare it to the 24 model year. And oddly enough, you look at it and it's more or less the same. It's going to feel the same. It's going to look the same. And performance statistics are going to be primarily the same. But it's what goes on behind the scenes. And a lot of people are starting to figure this out. A lot of these vendors, like Toyota, as I already mentioned, their base model is the same price, but it's their SR5, which is sort of their sweet spot, is up significant amount of money. And if you look at draw the comparison with a lot of their models, specific trim levels of the 4Runner from the outgoing version to what we see now coming in for 25. I mean, sure, there's some differences. The older version had a V6 and the new version has a Turbo 4. And, there are some differences. There's a lot more technology in the new ones, a lot more safety nannies. And the older ones were starting to feel a little dated. But, I mean, let's face it, that technology is a dime a dozen and most of it's cookie cutter and built in high numbers and volumes. So there's no reason any of it should cost the kind of money that is being billed to the customers. People are starting to catch on that they're being pushed into higher trim vehicles. They're the ability to go out there and get a base cheap vehicle, even a $25,000 sedan. Those days have pretty much come and gone. And while, there is still the odd Nissan or Mitsubishi that you can find around $20,000, the reality is most vendors are pretty much making those types of vehicles disappear. A lot of people, and the responses I get, are coming from a place of passion and they're hurt by the simple fact that a lot of these dealers and a lot of these manufacturers are kicking people when they're down. That's what it feels like. And I'm feeling the same. I've been shopping for vehicles. I'd love a new vehicle. But I've kind of come to terms with and come to grips with the very idea that I don't know if it's in the cards. I've sort of come to terms with that. I'd love to get a new truck. And I showed you the truck I drive. I've got an old 2003 Ram 1500. It's got the 4.7. It's not a fancy flash and dash. It's like an SLT. So I got power seat, power windows, locks, the conventional stuff. There's not a lot of features to it, but it works, And I've got about 180,000 kilometers on it right now, probably 110, 115,000 miles. Still runs well. Doesn't use oil. Rattles a little when it's cold, but hey, show me a Ram that doesn't and I'll show you $5 million. A lot of people are starting to come to terms with these high prices and it angers a lot of people. It really does. It angers me. I mean, we shouldn't be mad. I mean, we should enjoy our lives and enjoy our time with the family and our vacations and our jobs. And that's all well and good to say that until you need a vehicle to get to work, to pay for that job, or to go to that job to pay for your cost of living, your food and your roof over your head. But it really impacts more than the option of, or the opportunity of going to get a nice to have. Because, well, some people just want to go out and buy that new shiny toy and that new shiny SUV or car or truck. There are a lot of people that just like to flip vehicles every 2 or 3 years. The fact remains is there's a lot of us out there that need a vehicle to get around, to take our kids to sports, to get ourselves to work, to do the basic essentials, just to get around, because a lot of these places we live are spread out. We don't all live in these tightly wound little European towns where you can walk from the store to the restaurant, to the church, it doesn't work like that in a lot of these places in the US and Canada where it's very spread out. We need a vehicle. I mean, even my 2003, I know I'm on borrowed time, but I think what a lot of people are starting to realize with these extraordinarily high prices is, saying, the hell with this BS. What comes around goes around, and they realize that they're not going to keep feeding the beast. Well, there are people that are buying new vehicles. You'll look around, look on the streets, there's new trucks there, and there's a new SUV driving by, and there's always people buying, absolutely. But a lot of that's enabled by the banks. The banks essentially own probably the majority of these new vehicles because we're seeing a lot of the rates of repossessions are climbing. And a lot of people like me and like a lot of you that are watching, not everybody, but a lot of you that are watching this channel can appreciate and relate with me in the sense that, sure, we'd all love a new vehicle, but we're also not going to, bend over and take it. No, we look at other options. There's other opportunities to keep getting ourselves to work. And it doesn't always mean that you have to buy that newest vehicle. You do oil services, you stick with the maintenance. If something starts to leak, you kind of address it and deal with it. If there's a weird noise, you try to figure it out. If you can fix it, you do. All do it at a reasonable level. I mean, you want to put a $100 saddle on a $10 horse, but even that concept becomes more sensible these days. I look at my truck now and, if it were to blow an engine, hypothetically, I'm more than willing to drop a new crate engine in it. I think of the new price of a new truck. Even the base model, garden variety. I think some of the base work trucks that you're getting from some of these vendors, I've shown you, Chevy, you're still paying 60 grand, 55 plus taxes, 60 grand for a base, regular cab long box with the 4-cylinder 2.7. And that's going to cost you $60,000 Canadian with taxes. I look at a lot of the Rams now, they got the work trucks that are very cheap and dirty with the V6, and you're going to pay $65,000 for those trucks. I look at that and I think about my old truck and I think what a lot of people are starting to do is follow along with kind of my process, and some of them are ahead of me in this idea, but this very ideology of, making what you have last longer. Now again, we're on borrowed time. We're not going to be able to do this forever and ever. Eventually, it may rust away, and some cars are get hit in an accident and then it's taken off the road. Sometimes it's just too catastrophic. Sometimes, depending on the vehicle, it might be a diesel vehicle. With some of the expensive drivetrains there, it might be more worthwhile to move on. But in so many cases, people are realizing, you know what, I'll just keep maintaining it, learning how to DIY. I mean, YouTube's a wonderful platform to realize how to fix your own vehicle. I may just keep this one. And if I can trim out 2 of those vehicles in that time frame, and if I can get another 7 to 10 years out of this truck, I've saved myself the buying and the expenses related to 2 vehicles. And yeah, eventually I will have to buy something, and we'll all be talking about this and say, yeah, here's some great deals. And I do believe there's some great buys out there today. And I think you really have to navigate through the weeds and realize there's some decent purchases. Go look at a Mazda 3, for example. It's a good buy. Toyota Corolla. I mean, not everything is a ripoff. I mean, they're all highly priced and everything's creeping up. But I truly believe the big 3 have been the worst, the absolute worst for doing this. I truly believe GM, Ford, and Ram and Stellantis are the worst culprits in cranking up prices. And I don't know why that is, because I'll be honest, I look back 20 years ago, we used to giggle because you always had to pay more for the import German stuff, the luxury car vehicles, even Volkswagens and products like that were always considered more premium, and you pay more and you expect to pay more. But then the Japanese cars came, and in the late 70s, early 80s, they were reliable, but they rusted out like there's no tomorrow. Datsun, you could hear it rust overnight. But then once the Japanese cars, the Toyotas and the Hondas, figured out, wait a minute, we're kind of figuring the metallurgy thing here a little bit. And by the time you rolled into kind of the late 80s, into the 90s, they started figuring out, and while they're not perfect, they started realizing that, there are ways to build these vehicles without them rotting away. So now the Japanese cars, the Toyotas and the Hondas, realize that we can create value add, a vehicle that's reliable, that won't rust, and that's quite affordable. And they did that for years. But they were always a little bit more money. Everything import was a little bit more money than the domestic products. If you looked at a Toyota Camry, it was traditionally more money than a Malibu. You looked at the import versus domestic, it was always a premium dollar. It didn't matter if it was coming from Japan or Germany, it was always more money for an import. And it was justified. A lot of people felt that, the product is reliable, it's quality, and I'm okay in paying that because it feels right to pay that. And the domestic vehicle manufacturers often knew that they sort of had to provide value in other ways. The quality and the reliability wasn't quite there, but the value came in the way of pricing. What we're starting to see are these vehicles that have come out of literal nowhere. Pricing that really should not be anywhere near what it is. And now what we've sort of seen is this crossover where we've seen this bridging of effects where pricing now is higher on most of the domestic products than the import products. where now we're seeing half-ton trucks costing more than BMWs and Audis. We never thought we'd ever see those days, but how did we get here? Well, I guess it's capitalism. Supply and demand, but realistically, it's greedflation. So if you take my approach of fixing what you've got, keeping your vehicle last longer, does that sound like a great solution for you and for some of the people around you that you love, your friends and family? Because quite honestly, car prices don't seem to be dropping anytime soon. I'd love to hear your thoughts about how you plan to manage going forward with some of these extraordinarily high car prices. The fourth story. Would you believe it? Honda is actually dishing Nissan out of financial problems. It sounded like Nissan was in for a world of hurt, 12 to 14 months, and they could literally be out of business. It's so bad, in fact, that Nissan and Infiniti are going under the same roof. CEO is taking a pay cut, and the CFO has decided to quit altogether. Things are getting dire. Sales are in the toilet. What's wrong with Nissan, and how did Honda fix that problem? It's no big shocker and no big surprise that Nissan has been drastically falling off a cliff. With a 90% decrease in profits in the early part of 2024 and a 70% drop in their forecast profits going into the next year, things are looking pretty bleak. So bad, in fact, that the CEO has decided electively to take a 50% pay cut. The CFO also took a walk. Things are looking pretty bleak. And we're also looking at Infiniti sharing some real estate with Nissan because neither of which on their own are able to stand on their own 2 feet. Things are quite bleak. Honda as well. There's a big competition here for market share. But in this case, competition turns into friends and foes. Foes no longer, and they're becoming friends. And allegedly, there's some talks and conversations of almost a 3-way discussion and a collaboration. Nissan, we know they can't stand on their own, and they've been looking for serious investors. Honda has also been looking for somebody to partner up with, and it looks like there's a holding company that potentially and allegedly both Honda and Nissan are collectively looking to bump uglies with. They look to get together, and as well, Mitsubishi is looking to tag along for the free ride. Now Renault is tangled up in this mess too, and collectively these brands are looking to put together a strong force and collaboration that hopefully gives them a fighting power against some of the Chinese marketplace. Now, unfortunately, we've seen what's been going on recently. There's 3 big losers: the real ankle biters, bumper chasers. You know, those that are typically chewing on your ankles and your knees, trying to get a chunk of your leg. Well, yes, we're talking about Stellantis. We know that they've been struggling with sales. We know that the CEO is walking. There's been internal debates and as well as arguments, allegedly, between the CEO or the outgoing CEO as well as the senior board members. We've seen challenges with Nissan and profits that are drastically down because they're spending a lot of their profits on marketing, networking, and as well incentives. So Nissan really doesn't have an innovative product that's keeping people in the doors, and Nissan's been struggling. Ford's been hurting as well. But Volkswagen is really the big culprit here that's really facing a lot of uphill headwinds. We're looking at the basic economics in Germany is really struggling, and it's having a major impact. Energy costs are on the rise. Inflationary costs are on the rise. You're having a lot of the unions in Germany really fighting back due to cost of living changes, and the fact that a lot of these manufacturers are trying to claw back, looking for opportunities to save money, and they're trying to do it on the backs and the hides of the frontline workers. This isn't boding very well, and naturally, as you would expect, there's a lot of disputes. There's a lot of animosity. There's a lot of anger within a lot of the German manufacturers, and Volkswagen's leading the way. With tens of thousands of workers taking a walk, plants are looking at being closed. Volkswagen is definitely one of the big 3 losers. Stellantis being the primary one. You hear every single week there's some another source of news and catastrophic failure. And while Nissan literally looked like it was targeting for 12 to 14 months and they were going to be out of business, this latest collaboration with both Honda, Mitsubishi, and possibly Renault as one of the key shareholders may in fact be just what the doctor ordered. So stay tuned as the next coming weeks and months hold up. They're not denying nor are they confirming, but the rumors and the talks are real. And it sounds very much like a discussion where we're looking at now more of a, getting together and supporting each other in this battle to try to take on the world market from China. The electric vehicle market is a very competitive one, and unfortunately by the time year 2030 and 35 roll around, virtually the entire globe looks to be pushing to have all manufacturers fully converted. How a lot of these conventional OEMs look to be doing? Well, quite right now, we look at Honda. They're not doing all that well. Toyota as well. They're putting more investments in the hybrid space. Honda's not really owning a lot of that space in general either, and neither is Nissan. And while all of them have a small sampling or a sprinkling of hybrids, and Nissan's got that electric vehicle on top of the Leaf, which they figured they could make a run at it, but the Leaf hasn't been very successful. To be serious and be a top leading competitor in this electric vehicle market just means that they're going to have to do something much more competitive. We know the cost of manufacturing is high. The batteries, the access to the batteries, the manufacturing, a lot of the construction and the frontline workers, the skills don't necessarily transfer directly from the ICE manufacturing over to the electrified vehicle manufacturing. So are you excited about Honda's new approach on dishing out the likes of Nissan? How do you think the competition looks, and which vehicle would you be excited for? Do you anticipate some great new models to come out of this? Because if you're bringing two very unique vehicles, Honda and Nissan, together and collectively immersing themselves together like that, what do you think they promise to create for new vehicles on the market? I'd love to hear your thoughts if it looks like a promising proposition and a collaboration between those two famous brands. And the fifth story, Ram and Stellantis. We know the struggles have been real for Ram. They could not sell, they have days supply, growing inventory, and the only way they've been selling them was with almost giveaway levels of incentives. But could it be true? Ram, with the likes of Tim Kuniskis, is back in the helm again. Could that be what the doctor ordered for Ram? But what's been lurking in the background? Now, allegedly, rumor on the street is the former CEO, who has just taken and tendered his resignation, was trying to kill the V8 Hemi. Yeah, unfortunately, it's not a shocker. We're seeing the turbocharged Hurricane inline six-cylinder engine, the only drivetrain right now that is of any consequence in driving these current generation 2025 Rams, which also went through a slow roll and rolled in very, very softly. People didn't take onto the trucks very well, and unfortunately, as of November 2024, Stellantis was supposed to present the new battery electric EV pickup truck. But now the latest news is that new BEV is getting pushed back at least 6 months or beyond, simply because the lukewarm interest that a lot of buyers are having in the North American market. It's proof right now. The F-150 Lightning can't sell unless there's heavy incentives tied to it. Same with the Mustang Mach-E. Heavy incentives are the only thing that moves that vehicle down the road. And while GM's had some enjoyment and sold some of their electric vehicles like the EV Hummer clearly haven't sold well. And now we're in a position where Ram is making some announcements where they were supposed to release that new full battery electric vehicle Ram in November of this year. They've decided to push it back, and instead they've replaced it with something that they've advanced on the market. Now, there's a couple of issues here going on. Of course, this former CEO was trying to make that V8 Hemi go away, but on top of it, quickly trying to advance the electrified marketplace. We're starting to see it. But since the resignation of Carlos Tavares, we've now seen Tim Kuniskis come back as the Ram CEO. He's looking at taking over the brand, and hopefully, as we know, Tim was one of the biggest advocates for the V8 engines. Obviously, the Hemi Challenger and the Chargers, as well as the full-size truck Rams with the V8 engines. Yes, in fact, they could be back. Is that V8 Hemi coming back for Ram in the near future? Time will tell. But instead of that battery electric vehicle Ram coming to market, Stellantis has announced that they're going to advance their hybrid vehicle. That's right, the Ram Charger is going to be advanced very quickly. Now, Stellantis is looking at making some drastic changes on the quality control, trying to improve, because even with Carlos Tavares at the helm, he recognized that the quality wasn't there, and customers were losing interest in the brand altogether. Now, based on overwhelming consumer interest, we're looking at, by the first half of 2025, the new Ram 1500 Ram Charger is likely coming to market, and likely going to be coming to market quicker than the full battery electric vehicle. A lot of people seem to be able to get behind the idea of gaining some advantage with some improvements on fuel economy, but they don't want to give up entirely on their internal combustion engine. I mean, how can we plug in a battery electric vehicle like the Recon, like any of these full electric vehicles? What, are you going to take your Jeep off-roading and plug it into a tree? The infrastructure is not there. Europe's struggling with bad infrastructure. North America's struggling with infrastructure. The extreme cold weather is a problem on electric vehicles. And clearly it doesn't represent the go-to for any buyer right now in the North American market. So the hybrid feels like the next best thing. A lot of people are showing interest in those vehicles, and now Stellantis is announcing that they're going to be advancing and bringing that vehicle to market much sooner. Now it looks like the Ram Charger is going to have a V6 engine tied to a 92 kilowatt hour battery system, and that V6 engine represents simply a range extender. Dual electric motors promise to drive the front and the rear wheels, and all said combined output looks to be around 663 horsepower and about a 615 pound-feet of torque. That should be a very lively driving experience and one in which this be very memorable. But on top of it, you also get the improved economy, you get the performance, and that range extender means you can even drive up to a targeted 145 miles on battery power alone. Now, Stellantis alleges with the engine in the mix, they're able to achieve a full range of about 690 miles. Clearly, it gives anybody an opportunity to get almost coast to coast with a couple of charges. It promises to offer up a flexibility you can only dream of in current electric vehicles, where you have to stand there by a charger for the next 8 hours to get your vehicle charged, or even a fast charger still take you a 45 to an hour to charge, and then and only then are you still able to get on the road. This is a range extender and likely will give you a much better flexibility and more resilience against the extreme cold weather. And if I know what I believe I know about Tim, he's going to be targeting that market day supply, because we've seen absolutely devastating sales numbers for Ram pickup trucks for the last few years. And a lot of it has to do with the high prices and the low quality. But now it appears that Tim and the rest of the organization plans to focus on quality, holding back on what they believe on the new REV as being having some quality issues and concerns. Are you excited for this new Ram Charger that they plan to bring to market? Range extending, huge horsepower, it offers some great new alternatives to the truck and the EV marketplace. Sounds very intriguing. What are your thoughts? And with all of that said, if you're looking for a new vehicle and you're really tired of these high prices and you definitely don't want to be snookered with a piece of junk, check out right there the most reliable vehicles on the market for 25, and right there the least reliable vehicles of 25. You're going to want to avoid those ones like the plague. Hope to see each and every one in the next one. We'll see you all real soon. Bye-bye.